MKUltra and how it works. You ever wonder why they call it television programming, TV programming, movie programs? Because they are programming you. They haven't programmed anything else but you. It's a monkey see, monkey do procedure, experiment, whatever you want to call it. A human sees violence, they conduct violence. A human sees happiness, they conduct happiness. You learn what you see. Think Blanca from the live action Street Fighter movie. Those goggles with the TV in them, with the screens in them, the fucking Apple Vision Pro. All they were showing him was violence, destruction, so that's all he knew. And once they started showing him butterflies and green fields, he became a little more nice. It's sort of the same concept. Like I said, humans are a sort of monkey see, monkey do. Everything we do is learned or taught to us. Now, it's even easier to engrave all this thinking if you're on some sort of drug. What they did was spread the drug acid, LSD, onto the college campuses, universities, which is what started that whole hippie movement. Those were all college kids. All it takes to convince somebody is repeat, repeat, repeat. You put on the same program over and over and over, and soon it gets seared into your mind. And that's all you know. That once you see something that's not that, it feels out of the norm to you because that's all you're used to seeing. So you'll be opposed to anything other than that. And not just LSD, it could be any drug like nicotine or something, any stimulant that would make it easier for these programs to program you. The goal of MKUltra isn't get people to think the way we think. It's get them to think the way we want them to think. Full control, aka brainwash, which most college campuses are basically just indoctrinations to get people to think the way you want them to think. Don't get me wrong, I am in full support of people getting their degrees in education, but actual education, not manipulation and all this other stuff. I will be making a video on how Google and Wikipedia, basically the whole internet, is now compromised when it comes to actual information of truth, truthful information. MKUltra is what birthed the hippie movement. Hippies thought that they were gaining freedom. No, they were literally under control of whoever was doing the MKUltra, aka the CIA or FBI, whatever you want to put it. FBI always helps the CIA. The FBI is the federal government, not the American government. The CIA is not part of any government organization, though they're funded by Americans, just like the FBI. Even though the goal of MKUltra is basically to dismantle the American people so that they can never have an uprising against any government and just have full control of people. These are the goals of MKUltra. Around 1953, the CIA becomes interested in mind control because while interviewing some of the soldiers of Vietnam, some of the soldiers of the Cold War, these soldiers admit to doing crimes they didn't do. They wanted to find out how and why these soldiers were admitting to crimes they didn't do. Or so that's what the CIA says, but I believe they were trying to do this whole MKUltra experiment long before, about 10 years before 1953, which was during World War II. They wanted to see how and why the German soldiers were so willing to die for their country, for their leader. During World War II, Germany had the greatest scientists in the world. They were leading the world in scientific discoveries. Then World War II ended and we brought all the scientists over to America to help the American people. Well, to help American science. And what was Germany attempting to do during World War II? Create a super soldier, one who would take orders without question, one who would be physically and mentally stronger than the opposing forces. The invention of LSD began as a truth serum. They were trying to invent a truth serum. When I say they, I mean the CIA was trying to invent a truth serum, which actually ended up being a drug that made you more susceptible to agreeing with everything that you heard while you were on this drug. So what they discovered that LSD does is it makes you more easily convinced of anything. This goes for any drug. Any mind-altering drug like nicotine, THC, literally anything makes you more susceptible to being mind-controlled. The whole hippie movement was basically one big MK Ultra experiment. It was one big mind control. This still happens on college campuses even today. The test for these experiments begin on young minds, ready for their minds to be molded, aka college campuses. College campuses are the perfect little playground for these experiments. You've got an endless amount of subjects willing and ready to have their minds changed, to have a different way of thinking than they've had their whole life, ready to be quote unquote educated. All the CIA had to do was send an undercover agent disguised as a student with LSD saying, "Here, take this," and boom, experiments begun. While they're on LSD, you get to shape their minds however you see fit. For example, how Charlie Manson did this was visuals. He would do little plays of him being crucified on a cross, making it as though he was Jesus Christ or the second coming of the Messiah. So that's why all of his followers were so convinced that he was their leader and that they should take his word as the word of God. Because he would do these plays while everyone else was tripping balls on acid. He was sober, conducting these little plays and made up scriptures. Some of the scriptures he would say was made up. Some of them were straight from the Bible. But Charles Manson would interpret all of these scriptures towards himself. Charles Manson didn't just use MK Ultra techniques on his followers. He was a subject of MK Ultra. They did this to him through the prisons. Usually when someone is brainwashed, there are trigger words and trigger visuals that might cause a person to snap into what their mission actually is or out of the brainwashing. It's not until they've broken free from the mind control when they realize the choices that they were making wasn't even them. Sometimes they'll even believe that they were just in a different state of mind or outgrown that, when really, no, they were under mind control the whole time. It's a lot easier to manipulate a person than to convince a person they've been manipulated. LSD is sort of a mind-opening drug which can make it so easy to reprogram somebody's brain. It's probably the most effective drug when it comes to this experiment of MK Ultra. THC works as well because that's also psychoactive. Basically, any drug makes it easier for mind control to take hold of you. Now, I'm not saying if you're drug-free, MK Ultra won't work on you. It definitely will. It's very subliminal, very hard to read at times, except nowadays it's really easy to see that there's an agenda going on when they're trying it, because I see them still trying it in everyday programs, everyday advertisements, everything else. Cigarette companies have done a great job, especially in their early times, on how to get people to smoke. They made it seem as if it'll help you with your health. It'll help you lose weight if you're trying to lose weight. It'll help you look pretty. Only all the good-looking people smoke. Only all the famous people smoke. If you're rich, you have to smoke. Kind of advertisements, which would lead other people to spend their last dime on a cigarette. Isolation. Another step of manipulation. What you do when you want to manipulate someone is you isolate them from anyone who could tell them different, anyone who could snap them out of it. Kind of how Charles Manson isolated his followers. He brought them all to another group of people, his followers, who were already manipulated into his way of thinking. They were already brainwashed into the way he wanted them to think. Similar to how college campuses are echo chambers or in their own little bubble. Another example is how each government isolates their own people from the outside governments. They give them their own news. That's why their magazines, Time magazines, are different in Europe than they are in America. Finally, there are plenty forms of brainwashing, manipulation, MK Ultra, so to say. Most of them are subtle, some of them are not. It usually just depends on the subject, on how effective it'll be. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Live and let live. Gandhi.